Hey everybody, and welcome back to another severe storm thermal weather forecast. In this forecast, we're going to be talking about another full breakdown on Hurricane ERIN, how it could impact the United States, as it looks like per today's model trends and ensemble trends even, that we could see more of a major impact storm to the eastern United States. It's not a definite yet, and I'll get into details here in just a second of why the models show that. But we're also going to, after the breakdown of ERIN, going to be talking about our severe weather threats, as well as the overall pattern breakdown across the continental United States over the course of the next 7 to 10 days. All right, so let's get right into all of that. Without further ado, taking a look at the highlight of the video, obviously here is Tropical Storm ERIN right here, starting to really get some robust cloud tops across the central Atlantic, and will likely continue to move from east to west over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. This is going to be a really close call for the Leeward Islands, all right? So if you guys live in the Leeward Islands, the cone shows this shifting off towards the north pretty quickly and not impacting you guys. But the way this is further south than modeling concerns me, because this is likely going to be favored continuing to move from east to west, mainly due to the fact that we have this high pressure system here, and I'll explain that more into depth right now. To start off this video, let's take a look at our steering currents that will likely control the way ERIN moves over the course of the next few days. All right, notice here, area of high pressure here, area of high pressure here. All right, they are both weak, but they do have easterlies, and that is traveling ERIN off towards the west at this time. All right, now as we head in towards tonight, I would not be shocked if this tries to take a little slim turn off towards the west northwest, but a very vague turn before it will likely turn towards the west southwest tomorrow morning. All right, this model likes to show, the hurricane, and many operational models like to show this hurricane completely avoiding the islands and going out to sea. Unfortunately, I don't think that scenario is as likely anymore, and I'll tell you why. Is because as we head into Friday, this is going to be sitting here east of the Leeward Islands, so you guys need to start watching. I tell you why is because we have this high pressure system right here, and you're still going to have lots of easterlies coming out of the east and pushing this, west-southwest. All right, if the hurricane is right here, or the tropical storm probably by Friday, it's likely going to make a quick beeline toward the Leeward Islands, all right? That's why I think the models are wrong for saying that this is going to dodge them completely, all right? I mean, that's possible since this is weak ridging, but I don't see it, all right? If this is even a bit tad stronger, if there's a 597 contour or something like that, even if there's not, there is likely going to be some steering at least slightly towards the south and southwest. And that is something to keep an eye on for those islands as we head in towards the Saturday especially time frame. Before we head into the daytime hours on Sunday, then it gets interesting. All right, we have a little bit of weakness right here, all right? This is going to, be an upper-level disturbance that is likely going to punch through these ridges that will likely allow for an exit route for ERIN, right? Nope. All right, I tell you why. You probably think that, all right, and that would be the best case scenario. But look over here. We have this evil entity trying to destroy the game here, all right? Not for ERIN, but for folks in the United States. All right, I tell you why. That's because we take this into the daytime hours on Monday and even Tuesday. This is my point. All right, high pressure system right here, high pressure system right here, winds coming out of the east, easterlies coming like that, southerlies coming out like this. All right, this, my friends, will drag ERIN right here, and if this high pressure system indeed is in the position it is on this model, this will almost certainly get yanked right towards the eastern coast of North Carolina, and that would put many beaches at significant risk. All right, I'm not saying this scenario is likely right now. I'm saying that this scenario is opening up a little bit more than previous days. Previous days ago, it looked like this was going to be an open thing and out to sea. Then the weakness, prevented this ridge from moving east. But look at this Canadian trough. It is a lot faster progression than what we were looking at yesterday. All right, this trough was way back here, which would have prevented this ridge from coming southeast. And I did mention that potential, and here we are talking about that southeast shift. If this is the case, this would be a landfalling hurricane for the United States. All right, I'm just going to put it bluntly out there right now. There is a possibility I could see a quick landfall in the North Carolina region. All right, could this change since it's like, a week out or so? It certainly could. But, trends are pointing towards, as we get closer, that this trough is a bit faster in progression. And believe me, the morning model showed this too. So this is not just coming out of thin air afternoon, happy hour models, but if you know what I mean. But, this is a concerning trend to watch. This is turning into a trend. And the ensembles are actually starting to adjust on this too. Wouldn't be shocked if some 0Z models had some spaghettis in here. All right, or not that far south, but right into here and maybe like colliding with Virginia and North Carolina. All right, like right into here should watch out very much for the system. As we head into the daytime hours on Wednesday, notice here this weakness, or this trough rather, is likely going to move into the Atlantic, all right? Like I said, the timing of this trough will be extremely crucial as to what, how far east this ridge can manage to go. The further east this high is, the worse, because like I said before, if it's further east like we were just looking at, it's going to be a landfall almost certainly. If it's a bit further west, it would likely allow this high pressure system to allow its steering currents to take it right out to sea, not impacting anybody but little Bermuda there. All right, you can see Bermuda right here. All right, I still am not ruling out some impacts for you guys there. All right, or when I talk about major impacts as well. All right, so Bermuda definitely needs to be watching this more than the United States right now. All right, like I said before, just because we're talking about the possibility of a new scenario of landfalling hurricane potential opening up for North Carolina doesn't mean it is likely right now. All right, this is just a scenario that just opened up on the models today. We will see what these do tomorrow, and we'll likely have another update for you guys tomorrow. But if you are anywhere along this coast, from, the Virginia region down to the North Carolina region, even parts of South Carolina need to be watching this, all right? Anywhere in this black shaded out area needs to be watching this as we head into next week. And I'm talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, with Tuesday, Wednesday being the potential landfall date if it were to happen. The most likely scenario is that this heads right between the United States and Bermuda, and that this doesn't, impact anybody, majorly. But some models do still show this a bit further east in Bermuda. Now, noting that the GFS is showing that, we shouldn't be talking about that. But all models are something to watch, especially this time of year where sneaky curves can set up, and we could also have sneaky, other sneaky tropical waves, like one over here, in the, Gulf, which, isn't really anything too concerning to talk about. Brian Norcross stated, but it is, that time of year where we could get some sneaky steering currents. So with this high pressure system, is connected to this one for some reason, big problem for these areas, all right? I'm not saying that's a likelihood. I'm saying that is a scenario, and it needs watched over the course of the next few days. Now that we're done talking about the possibilities of where this could be steered to, now let's talk about how strong this thing could get, all right? I fast forward this all the way to Sunday, mainly due to the fact that this is likely going to be battling some dry air all the way from, here to here over the course of the next few days, from, the rest of today, Wednesday, to, as late as possibly Saturday afternoon. Before Sunday, this starts to blow up, all right? I tell you why that happens is because we start to develop a ULAC, and an upper-level anticyclone is what that stands for. Notice all of these winds fanning out the dry air like nothing as we head into Sunday. This is not good. This tells me that we are seeing lots of moisture intake here. All right, there's lots of moisture, lots of warm sea surface temperatures, and there's a lack of wind shear you notice here as well. And even if there is wind shear, like there is some right here, it's being dispersed away from the storm. All right, that's how strong our upper level anticyclone is going to be by Sunday. By Monday, it's even stronger, and it's likely going to allow this hurricane to deepen even more. Monday, I would not be shocked if this is a bit stronger than this model showing, all right? Models do a horrible job in predicting strength of hurricanes, but I definitely think it's going to be major, maybe even as high as a Category 4 status, and as low as a high-end Cat 2, in my opinion, by Monday, all right? Because at this point, I think that this is going to have enough divergence where it's just going to be completely guarded by this upper level high pressure system. All right, I mean, it's right here and you can see it very clearly. All right, it's not going to impact the storm at all. It's going to protect the storm from any limiting factors. All right, and you notice that very well as we head into Tuesday. This still continues to deepen. This shows a 954 millibar low. If you ask me, is that going to likely be, the storm strength? I'm going to say no, because there's so much divergence, and the fact that there's so much warm sea surface temperatures, you're talking about in the order of upper 80s to near 90 degrees, bath water, and, this is going to be a highly favorable area for some significant rapid intensification, all right? And you couple that with a significant lack of wind shear, I think this is going to blow up into at least a Category 4, all right? And maybe even a 5. We're just going to have to wait and see, but a Category 4 or even a low-end 5 would not surprise me by Tuesday and Wednesday. By Thursday and Friday, this starts to get yanked out by this trough, all right? A secondary trough that's likely going to bring some cooler air into the United States. That's what we're going to be talking about in the next section of this video. But overall, we really need to be watching because this is likely going to form into a significantly major hurricane. And let's take a look at our European Ensemble model, all right? Because I think this has a great handle of what could happen, all right? And taking a look here, obviously there is agreement that as we head towards tomorrow morning, ERIN is likely going to maintain an east to west direction with a slight shift off to the west southwest as we head towards tomorrow afternoon due to the high pressure system. Notice by Friday afternoon, though, they start to curve a little off towards the north. All right, this is mainly due to the fact, like I said before, that our high pressure system's right here. But you notice here with the European Ensemble, they're still connected a lot. All right, and I mean a lot. And that kind of concerns me. And you probably think, well, is this going to drive right into the Caribbean and into the Gulf? Not the case at all. I tell you why is because the contours are right here as we head into Friday afternoon, right? I'm going to leave that circled, or I'm going to leave this circled area here, and then I'm going to fast forward this in time into Saturday afternoon. Now the contours are way over here. Some have it as far south as the Leeward Islands, and this is a scenario that I think is becoming a lot more likely. Like I said before, I would start having hurricane plans ready if you live in the northern leewards. All right, I'm just going to be in my honest opinion right now on the way my gut feels. I would be ready in the Leeward Islands, all right? And the way the pattern supports that as well, it's definitely need watching because, Saturday afternoon, look at this. This high pressure system is continuing to steer ERIN off towards the west-northwest, all right? Like no subtle changes to the north, all right? No big changes. It's not until Sunday where we start to see that turn to the north. And look at that. Even on this latest model, what concerns me is that this still hasn't even turned yet. All right, by late Sunday, this is still headed west-northwest. All right, high pressure system right here, which believe me is not what we want to see. This is very dangerously far east if we don't want U.S., direct impacts. But anyways, look at this high pressure system here, all right? Good news is that I think we should start to see these contours starting to curve off towards the north, mainly due to the fact that we have a little bit of breaking within this area here, all right? And watch what happens. That exactly happens as we head in towards Monday. Now, this is when divergence in the models start to occur. All right? Some have it as far west as the Caribbean. Some have it as far east as the Central Atlantic. The eastern scenario is becoming a bit more unlikely. The more I see future model runs, it is becoming a ton more unlikely. All right? And that means the best case scenario is also becoming a lot more unlikely as well. All right, well, I shouldn't say a lot more unlikely, slightly unlikely right now, all right? We could still have a best-case scenario that, splits the picture in between the two. But according to this latest EPS run, folks, it just does not want to turn north, all right? It is very slow to do so, and I show you this on Tuesday evening. Some of the contours are as far west as Florida, as a 985 millibar hurricane. All right, the weaker the storm, the more west it's going to go. It's eventually going to curve north, and if it's this far west, this is going to impact so many people up the East Coast. All right, the Florida scenario I think is unlikely right now, though I think, like I said before, the east turn scenario, the north turn further east in the Atlantic scenario is pretty much out of the question as well. It's mainly due to the fact that this Bermuda high is starting to scoot even further west than past ensembles were showing. All right, and I show you this as we head in towards Wednesday afternoon. Some have it as a faster hurricane up here, off the coast of, the northeastern United States, very far up the coast, by the way. And like I said before, this scenario is becoming a lot more unlikely, mainly due to the fact that it looks like we might have a faster progression of that trough, and it might leave, which means the weakness is not going to be there to prevent this ridge from blasting east. That, my friends, is going to probably steer her a bit closer to the United States. So I hate to say this, and I might sound like, a big, hurricane hypist, but I mean, I would be a little bit more in line with these contours. All right. I mean, even as far west as the southeast coast, I would be in line with. All right. I wouldn't be totally in line with, a few stragglers over here. But right now, I think this is a good bet for the day on Wednesday. All right, this can shift, but the eastern scenario, I just don't see happening right now. All right, and notice as we head into Thursday, how some like to, make landfall on the Carolina coast. All right, only one of them does that, but I would not be shocked if tomorrow's runs come in. This ridge is further east, and a lot more contours are further west. All right, tomorrow morning, if that happens, I would not be shocked. That would be a worst case scenario, but I unfortunately would not be shocked. This area of contours is where I'm watching most, which would be worst case scenario, mainly due to the fact it's too close for comfort. Not only that, but it's going to be a very exceptionally strong hurricane, and I think I have confidence this could reach Category 5 status, like I said before, with all the, upper level situations and stuff like that. So this is something to definitely seriously watch over the course of the next week or so for not only Bermuda, but also the eastern United States. And I do want to note, like I said before, Bermuda direct impact landfall is becoming a lot more unlikely, and a U.S. landfall is becoming a bit more possible as well. No need to panic yet. Just watch the forecast over the course of the next few days, definitely. And that was it for your in-depth forecast on ERIN. Now let's take a look at our overall pattern across the country over the course of the next 7 days. All right, notice here we got a big area of high pressure in the southwestern United States, an area of high pressure off the southeast coast that is, by the way, spawning several strong flooding thunderstorms across the southeastern United States this afternoon and evening. All right, so watch out if you live over there. What I'm concerned about is this area for the rest of the evening, where I think we could continue to see some nasty thunderstorms producing some damaging winds, a squall line producing damaging winds across this area. Same as we head into the daytime hours tomorrow, except a little bit of a trough ejection showing there, which is a very strong trough ejection, and it has a bit of a negative tilt. Not what you want to see, so I think the tornado threat could be a bit more elevated in this area perhaps tomorrow afternoon. In addition to the possibility of some significant damaging wind gusts. And then as we take it into the day on Friday, same story except further east. Upper Midwest into the Great Lakes, need to watch out. I could see some significant severe weather out of this. Meanwhile, big time ridges building down here. It's going to get very hot across the southeastern and eastern United States. And then as we head into the daytime hours on Saturday, we will likely continue to see this trough moving north. And then as we head into Saturday, I mean, notice here, like in the Midwest, we set up a big blocked area of high pressure. This concerns me for the possibility of mesoscale convective systems in this area as we head in towards that time frame. So watch out if you live in this circled area on Saturday. As we head into the daytime hours on Sunday, same thing. I would still be concerned for the possibility of, these pieces of energy riding over top this ridge. Anywhere from the northern plains, upper Midwest, back into the Great Lakes. Best overall chance, according to this model, is right into this area, but I definitely think it's possible anywhere over top this ridge. So watch out if you live in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes region. Some severe weather could be awaiting you to greet the end of your weekend. But then as we take it into Monday, we see ERIN approaching here, all right? This is a GFS model, so we're going to ignore her on this model. But notice here, I mean, we continue to have a serious ring of fire pattern that spans a heat wave all the way from the Rockies back into the eastern United States. And over top that, we're just going to continue to have these pieces of energy riding down the ridge, producing these mesoscale complexes across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, as well as the Northeast. That will likely continue into the day on Tuesday and Wednesday as well. All right, so lots to keep an eye on as we head in towards that next week time frame, especially for these areas. And taking a look now at our precipitation trends over the course of the next week or so, taking it in towards tomorrow afternoon, like I said before, we need to watch this area right into here for the possibility of some severe weather. Tornado threat could be a bit more on the higher end tomorrow. Not really a tornado outbreak, but maybe a couple of, embedded tornadoes within a squall line. I could maybe see one or two strong tornadoes given that negative tilt. All right, it's definitely not out of the question. Not likely, though, so no need to panic there, but definitely have ways of receiving alerts, as an enhanced risk could definitely be issued for wind, as well as possibly tornadoes in future outlooks, or 5% for tornadoes at that. But as we head into the daytime hours on Friday, I still think we could see a continuation of some severe weather across areas of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes, where like I said before, I could still see some organized potential. Like notice that there in Minnesota and Wisconsin, possible damaging wind maker there. And then as we head into Saturday afternoon and evening, we do it all over again along this boundary for areas of, the upper Midwest and Great Lakes where that impulsive energy will be. We also need to watch up here as well where another impulsive energy will be. Before we take this into the daytime hours on Sunday, we just have thunderstorms all over the place, all right? Main corridor will be up here, but I wouldn't be shocked if this kind of tries to drop into the Great Lakes overnight and then into early Monday morning here, because notice as that happens here, as we head in towards Monday afternoon, I mean, we could have some severe weather all the way from, the upper Midwest all the way to the eastern Appalachians, all right? So we could have a big area of where we could see some strong thunderstorm action on Monday. Same as we head into the day on Tuesday, except probably a bit further east. There across areas of Pennsylvania, Ohio Valley dealing with that. We're likely going to see several rounds of convection there. And then as we head in towards a week from today, things become a highly bit uncertain. However, we will likely continue that pattern where, like I said before, we'll likely continue to see shortwaves riding the northern periphery of that ridge. And even though the models aren't showing it, doesn't mean there can be some sneaky setups across these areas. So definitely want to stay weather aware. if you live anywhere in these areas over the course of the next week or so. All right, everybody, that will do it for this forecast. Please, if you found this information useful, which I hope you did, I got really into depth on the possibility of where the hurricane could go, how strong the hurricane could get, and the possibility of its impacts. All right, rough surf at the least for the East Coast, a significant hurricane at most for the East Coast, all right? In addition to that, severe weather as well as, a heat wave will be possible. We didn't go over the temperatures, but it's going to be very hot, spanning from the Rockies all the way towards the southeastern United States, where heat indexes over 100 could be recorded over the next several days. I am Severe Storm Filmer. Make sure you like, subscribe if you're not already. Leave any comments, questions down below if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your night, everybody, and stay safe out there.